Ukraine urges West to allocate 0.25% of GDP to defense industry support.
At a press conference in Kyiv, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on partner nations to allocate 0.25% of their GDP to boost Ukraine's domestic defense production, according to the Kyiv Independent. President Zelensky's appeal comes less than a week before the NATO Summit in The Hague, Netherlands, where he is expected to present Ukraine's urgent security needs to global leaders. Ukraine is part of Europe's security architecture, and we want each country to allocate 0.25% of its GDP toward Ukraine's defense industry and domestic weapons production, Zelensky said at the briefing. The Ukrainian president noted that Kyiv is currently negotiating defense partnerships with Denmark, Norway, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Lithuania. The proposed funding comes amid escalating Russian airstrikes, waning US support, and renewed offensives from Moscow. At the same time, Ukraine has demonstrated its capability to strike back using domestically produced weapons. The armed forces of Ukraine recently launched Operation Spiderweb, using drones to target 4 key Russian military airfields. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, Ukraine has significantly ramped up its defense production. However, Western support remains essential, as Kyiv's defense budget cannot fully sustain its military manufacturing needs. Denmark became the first country to support Ukraine's defense sector by purchasing weapons directly from Ukrainian defense companies. President Zelensky stated he hopes other NATO members will follow Denmark's example and begin sourcing arms from Ukraine to strengthen its war effort.
Kyiv engulfed in firepower as Trump administration remains indifferent.
Russia has recently launched a series of missile and drone (UAV) attacks on the Ukrainian capital Kyiv and other cities. One of the most intense bombardments took place on June 11th, when Russia deployed around 300 UAVs and 7 ballistic and cruise missiles in a single night. According to Ukrainian officials, 30 people were killed during the 9-hour assault, including victims crushed when a drone directly struck a residential building, causing it to collapse. Today, Kyiv, despite being one of the most heavily defended cities in Ukraine, is under relentless attack. What once were sporadic threats have now become a nightly nightmare for residents. Citizens take shelter for hours in underground bunkers, while Patriot systems and mobile teams in pickup trucks try to intercept swarms of Russian Shahed drones. "We need more support," Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko urged, pointing to growing indifference from Washington under the Trump administration as Ukraine continues to face a brutal war. Recently, the Trump administration redirected 20,000 anti-UAV missiles, originally intended for Ukraine, to the Middle East. The named-on US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also announced that America will stop purchasing new weapons for Ukraine starting next year. Meanwhile, Russia has upgraded its Shahed drones to a domestic version called Geran, which flies faster, higher, and is harder to detect. Some of these UAVs can even piggyback on Ukraine's telecommunications infrastructure to avoid electronic warfare systems. They're much faster, flying higher, and sometimes nearly impossible to detect, Klitschko warned about the evolving threat from Russia's Geran drones. When someone asks why we need the US, this is the reason. We need defensive weapons because we are defending our territorial integrity and independence, said Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko. Getting the Trump administration's attention is no easy task, especially as the US shifts its focus to the Middle East and scales back military aid to Ukraine. That's why Mayor Klitschko is sending a direct message to the White House. If President Trump is still unsure why Ukraine needs help, he should come to Kyiv to see the devastation, hear the bombs falling, and understand that this war cannot be ignored. I used to be a tour guide. If President Trump comes, I'll personally show him around, not just the historic landmarks, but also the places where children and civilians were killed by Russian missiles and drones, Klitschko said at Kyiv City Hall. Ukraine has accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure in recent missile and UAV attacks, allegations Moscow continues to deny. Despite his criticism, Klitschko also recalled a personal connection with President Trump. He reminisced about his boxing match with Ray Mercer at Trump's Taj Mahal casino in 2002, noting that he had a friendly conversation with Trump back then. "I would very much like the opportunity to speak with him directly and make a strong case," Klitschko emphasized.